When you're DM, every power comes to you, right? You're that one person where the buck stops. So you can do anything. The train was stopped midway. We called him the SP. The train was stopped and the child was actually pulled out of a cardboard box, half suffocated. These are mafias we are dealing with. 2 children have been sold by the uncle, 3-year-old and 5-year-old, for 15,000 rupees to a brothel.
How do you remain so courageous in these situations? Because it can be so overwhelming, it can be so daunting, and at times, because these are very scary people as well.
Yes.
Today with us we have Ministry S, a 2003 batch IAS officer from the Uttar Pradesh Cadre. She is currently serving as the Secretary of the Finance Department in the Government of Uttar Pradesh. Previously, she has held the post of District Magistrate in multiple districts, including Shahjahanpur, Ghaziabad and Barabanki. She has also served time in the state headquarters at the APC Branch, the Science and Technology Department, the Home Department and many more. Apart from her career as an IAS officer, she also translates across 4 languages: Malayalam, Hindi, English and Awadhi. In this episode of Sushasan, we shall be discussing her experience of fighting human trafficking post the Nepal earthquake, use of artificial intelligence in GST return scrutiny, her journey of literature and translation and much more. Do watch out for this episode of Sushasan. A very warm welcome, Ministry Ji, to this episode of Sushasan. It's indeed a pleasure having you with us today. We'll be discussing a lot about your tenure as an Administrative Services Officer and also talk about your experience of translating so many literary pieces that you've done over the years.
Yes.
Let's begin first with your tenure as District Magistrate in different districts. You have served as DM in 5 different districts in your tenure since 2003.
Correct.
Which one would you feel is one of the most fulfilling tenure between them?
Yes, I was fortunate to work as collector in 5 districts. It started out with Shahjahanpur. I was the first lady DM of Shahjahanpur. Then I moved to Mainpuri. Then later I worked in Farrukhabad, Barabanki and Ghaziabad. But everybody has a certain affection for one district.
Yeah.
So I had a pretty long tenure in Barabanki and could do a lot of work there. And we were fortunate to win a lot of awards also. So my tenure in Barabanki would count among the most beloved memories.
So I think, as you mentioned, that you won a lot of awards. One among them being the Hindustan Times Woman of the Year Award.
Yes.
And parallelly, you also were awarded the Distinguished Alumni Award by Accelerate.
Yes.
It happens to be your alma mater.
Right.
So what were the various interventions that resulted into that? Because I think you had about 2-3 years of a tenure and therefore sufficient time to make a lot of interventions come to fruition and also, impact a lot of people.
Yes, Barabanki, we did a lot of interventions, especially for women and children. So one thing we did is, at that time, my colleague, Dr. Kajal, she's a doctor. She had set up a first sanitary napkin production unit in Mahoba. So I just called her and said, we just want to copy what you did. Sometimes when there are excellent practices, we hesitate to copy. I think as administrators, it is very important to appreciate your colleagues and to learn from them and replicate and then improve upon them. So Kajal was very nice. She immediately sent a team. And I think with hardly 3.5 to 4 lakh investment, which we had from the Panchayati Fund, I just called my team. We got the Pad Man of India. He came and gave a talk. And, we set up the second sanitary napkin production unit. And so we gave employment to impoverished women and we distributed it among the school, the high school, among the lactating mothers. We created in the government system. At that particular time, all these systems of sanitary napkin distribution was not there. So we found out who needed it in Kasturba Balika, among our girls, among our women who were coming under our mentorship, our protection in various schemes. So it is a very, very successful unit, which we did just because we copied best practice. Then I had visited the district jail, because the collector is also the head of the district jail. So usually what we do is we visit, August 15th ko chala gaya and, they put the garland around you. But then I tend to interact with people and ask questions, sometimes uncomfortable questions. And then they said कि आपको क्या चाहिए? Said कि ma'am हमको कुछ काम दीजिएगा. Now, this is captive human resource. People are sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah.
And in Kerala, from where I hail, a lot of prison reforms and productive utility of, people were happening. People were making biryani, people were making, pakoda, people were making footwear, so many things. So I had read about it. So I just had a meeting with my team and I asked, let's start doing something. So I asked them what. So one was a master tailor.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he was in life imprisonment because there was a chagda and he picked up a rock. And I think, unfortunately, and he was weeping when he told me, ki, one mistake of my life and I'm inside here. I can't even see my children going to school. The man was weeping. Then I said, ki, so what do you want to do? He said, I can stitch and I can teach others to stitch. So can you provide us with some tailoring machines? So I just mooted the idea. In 5 minutes, my team said, ma'am, we will make it available. There were so many people willing to sponsor that. Banks were there, departments were there. So I had a very young team and they came forward, the GST department, the deputy commissioner, so many people. So first, it's very important to have a team who is as enthusiastic as you, So we got a good team. We planned a training session. The master trainer becomes a master sahib. And at that particular time, we had fund for school uniforms.
Right.
So at that particular time, this concept of self-help groups making uniforms and all were not in vogue.
Okay.
So we ended up giving a check of 1.5 lakh to the Prisoners Rehabilitation Fund because the prisoners stitched so many school uniforms for our girl children. And on a particular day, I think October 2nd, we had the children coming in with the collector's special permission. Kaidi Bhai, Dhanyavad karke, they put a garland around these men and took the uniforms and they were weeping. So the master tailor said, I'm not fortunate to see my daughter go to school wearing a uniform. Today I saw one child. Ma'am, thank you so much. So that was a very heart-touching episode for me. So I saw the need and the demand. There was a need for school uniforms. There were people wanting employment and the money could go to the Prisoners Rehabilitation Fund. So then I realized the power of a DM to bring these diverse needs together and to create a facilitating environment. So that was one project which gave me immense satisfaction. So these were some of the works which ended up in the award.
So you mentioned about working towards the sanitary hygiene of women, as well as prison reform as two of the major things. And I think a couple of things that I take away from that essentially is having the right set of team to get things delivered as one. Second, essentially was being able to identify the need by asking difficult questions. Because a lot of time you're going to different events and maybe you're not asking the right questions to actually get to know what the real problem of the situation is. Right. And then finally, I feel from the stint of making a reformative endeavor towards the sanitary issues of women, I think marginalized community and all of that is also something that you worked in over the years. So was that something which came in during this stint, or has that been a common theme across?
Just to take your question a little, forward. Asking uncomfortable questions, So in the Bible, in the Holy Bible, there is a quotation, Matthew 25:40, where the Lord says, what you do to the least of my brethren, you do to me. That means when you serve the lost and the least, you're actually serving me. And that's essentially the message in Adhyatma Ramayana, if you read it. And if you read the story of Hanumanji, it's the same thing. He says, no, I'm just serving you, whatever I'm doing. So asking uncomfortable questions, sometimes in a position of power, questions which people don't want to, because if you ask a question, aapke officers darenge, "Arey, humko abhi shauka se nahi milenge." So it is very important to make people feel secure also. You're asking a question not to punish them, but to find an opportunity to improve. So I would like to link this to the concept of empowerment, Venkatesh, by relating two other incidents in two other districts where asking uncomfortable questions led to good changes. So I had visited an orphanage, I think it was in Shahjahanpur.
And this was which year?
I think it was somewhere in 2008.
Okay.
Right? Barabanki came later. So I was just trying to speak about the question part. Sometimes it is important as a leader to ask questions. So the children were being taught. So I saw that a lot of children, obviously when they get to know that the DM is coming, everything is spick and span and the children are being taught and all that. But then beyond the obvious, one has to see. So I saw that differently abled children, especially mentally retarded children, right now, differently abled, as we say today, they were seated in a different corner. And so I, instead of walking to the other corner, I went to their direction. So the children were obviously affected. But then Seated among them was a 10-year-old,
Okay.
sparkling eyes,
Hmm.
very normal, very intelligent. So I just asked, why is he sitting here? Why is he not with the other kids?
Hmm.
Then the teacher said, nobody can understand his language.
Oh.
Okay. I said, what do you mean? He said, he has just been shifted from Agra orphanage here. He has been caught in a train and he was for 3 years in Agra and nobody can understand the language. So I spoke to him. In 1 minute, I understood he was speaking Telugu. I'm a Keralite, right? So I said, he's speaking a South Indian language. You'll be having a lot of people here who knows Telugu. And then he was trying to explain to me his situation. So I called him a batchmate who was, she's from Jammu Kashmir working in the beauty of our service. You know, she was working in Andhra Pradesh.
Yeah.
So I said, just talk to him. So my friend, Dr. Yogita Rana, she's Joint Secretary Agriculture right now. So in 5 minutes, she spoke to him. And she told me, Mini, this is a miracle. The boy says he fought with his mom and the railway station was nearby and he got into a train in a MEF. And the train, he didn't know what to happen. He was very, very young then. Ended up in Agra. And then was in an orphanage for 2-3 years. And now he's here, you know. And she says, give me 5 more minutes. And in 5 minutes, she told me an FIR has been registered that this boy is missing and, you know. And here was a child. So I said, just tell the mom you're sending him back.
Yeah.
And in 1 week's time, we ensured that the child reached his mother. And the village celebrated like Deepavali, you know.
Wow.
All it took was one question.
One question.
Why is this child seated here? It was that day I realized the power we have as officers to make such changes in human lives.
Right.
There was one more incident which happened again in Mainpuri. I was a district magistrate and morning, you know, the long queue for the villagers as a DM, you're sometimes a living god. You know, old people come, fold their hands, and they're calling you Sarkar. You know, for them, you are the, then you realize, you know, what an important position you're holding and you're filled with the humility. And in fact, you feel so full of responsibility to serve. So somebody was shouting, go back, you're coming every day. So I couldn't see who was it they were shouting at, but if somebody is coming every day, naturally there is a problem. So I said, send him or her in. I said, ma'am, literally what they told me is a nomadic woman.
Okay.
And she is from, you know, I said, send her in. And you will not believe it. She's fully pregnant. And she tried to touch my feet. Imagine a fully pregnant woman trying to touch. I jumped up, made her sit in a chair. She was dressed in all that gypsy, that dress. And she was weeping. And I couldn't understand a word of what she was telling. And my chaprasi was still shouting at her, saying, you know, up, kyun? Then I said, you just hush, let me talk. Sometimes you don't need language to understand each other. You just need to listen.
Right.
I just told myself, I will listen. Let me just listen to her. And in 5 minutes, I understood what she was trying to tell me in a peculiar dialect. She says, I don't want to give birth.
Oh.
My 2-year-old has been kidnapped. I know who has kidnapped him. I have been coming 20-30 times to this place. Nobody listens to me. If you cannot get my first child back, I don't want to give birth. This is a mother crying in front of me. Then I traced her complaints. And there were actually 30-40 complaints marked to a particular CO. Then the CO tells me in the phone, ma'am, they belong to criminal tribe. Her husband is in jail. You know, that's a story. And the person along with the husband, they had a fight and he managed to kidnap the child. The child is in Bihar. All of this information she has said is recorded. But they were not taking us seriously. So I asked the police officer, this is a mother's, I don't care if they belong to so-called stereotyped nomadic tribe, not to indulge in bootlicking, whatever. This is a mother asking for a child. Are you not responsible to trace the child back? He said, I am. I said, take it from me. Either you work on it and answer to me personally, or you'll face the consequences. But if you can help this mother, I'll ensure that I write a letter of appreciation personally to the DGP about you. Then the elections came, I forgot all about the incident. And on the day of Holi, literally it turned out Holi, 5:30 I get a phone call. At that time, mobiles and all were less. Landline, the district magistrate, 5:30. And the CO tells me, ma'am, the child is back with the mom.
Oh.
It took me a little time because I'd quite forgotten about it. And then I hear this lady laughing and crying and saying, "Bachcha mil gaya." And I looked at my little one sleeping next to me and I said, you know, this is a part of the job. One phone call, a mother gets a child back. So 2 mothers got their children back thanks to my joining the IAS. And I think that's the greatest blessing ever.
Definitely.
That's a blessing the job has given us. You know, it doesn't matter. Sometimes I think it is a service that, like the army or the navy or the air force, we are posted where we are asked to. You leave your land, your parents behind. You serve in the most remote corners of India. And there's a lot of sacrifice. But these moments make it absolutely worth it.
Definitely. So one thing which I see as a common theme here is that obviously as a civil servant, as an IAS officer, there are a lot of routine work that you must be, you're supposed to be doing, right? Be it file signing and all of those things. But there's always that scope to make an impact in any, in any place that you visit.
Anywhere.
So what is that level of scope that a district magistrate in a district gets, and how much, and what keeps you motivated to ensure that you're just not doing the mundane activity, but also making that extra effort to ensure that wherever you go, you're able to make that impact?
In the IAS, it is not just the district magistrate. Of course, in the district, when you are DM, every power comes to you, right? You're that one person where the buck stops. So you can do anything. But the moment you get the Indian Administrative Service, the tag after your name, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, as my father used to say, that once you're an IAS, you're an IAS. It doesn't matter. The power which comes, the common man looks at you as an officer who can make things happen. They don't care if you're Secretary Agriculture, the Secretary GAD, or for them, you're an IAS officer. So he or she comes to you, right? And in the DM, it's institutionalized power. But even today, let us say somebody comes to me and invites me to address, let us say, daughters, in a tribal school. If you go there and you talk to them, you're inspiring so many lives. So the job comes with so much of such perks. Somebody comes to you, say, ma'am, ek phone call kar sakta hai. Mein koi toilet abhi available nahi hai. You simply call up your colleague, a district magistrate, and say, dekho, ek toilet wala cheez, aapke liye ek phone call hai. Collector ne delegate kiya, but that man got a toilet.
Right.
His daughter has got dignity. That sort of power, how many jobs in the private sector will give you? So, when you say IAS, and the power keeps increasing with your hierarchy, and there is tremendous scope. We decide how we spend our time. We decide how we spend our power. Where we use our power.
One of the other instances that I think I would like you to discuss with us also is, I think, during a stint in Barabanki itself, where there were some safety issues related to Mentha Plants. So could you please elaborate a little bit? What was the challenge that, how did you get to know that this is a challenge?
Right.
And then what interventions were taken in that?
In the common grievances, when we get a lot of complaints, in the newspapers, there were reports of a lot of deaths happening because of unregulated and unplanned. Mentha is peppermint, right? So it is utilized for, perfume, it is utilized for soap, it is used for so many things. So farmers were cultivating it, but they did not have a proper technology of boiling and extracting it. So they would make these local tanks because of the pressure, volume, temperature, and because of tanks were exploding and a lot of people were meeting very horrible deaths. This was happening. So at that particular time, Vijay Kiran Anand, who was my CDO, and he's right on the Kumbh Mela Adhikari. So Vijay had come and said, we can get funding from NABARD and we can invite the IIT Kanpur team. Let's make a project about this and make a plant so that, people can sell it in this huge fear of, it is actually human lives being lost, and we have got technology here. So that is where I say the power of the DM. You get one phone call, the bankers come, the IIT team came. And today, recently 2 months before, I got a photograph of a very successful state-of-art modern Mentha cleaning plant there. So if you're a farmer, you need not risk your life. You can go and, donate it. That's when, you have the power of bringing so many people together to solve a problem that the society is facing. It takes a long time. It took 10 years. But then we started something which blossomed and bloomed in its own time.
So I also see that they were the right kind of partners that you looped in, NABARD and IIT Kanpur. So how do you see holistically in your journey as an IAS officer, different agencies, different institutions, different consulting organizations coming in and pitching into, making sure that things are implemented in the right
Exactly.
fashion?
The first and the most important thing for us to understand is sometimes we work in silos. We don't understand so much of help is available. Recently, I attended, as finance secretary, I attended a national level workshop for SDG, alternative financing models for SDG. I met this very impressive young lady, Priya Naik. She was speaking about how Samhita, her institution is bringing across commercial banks and CSR funding and philanthropy and everybody. And they are actually providing loans to the poorest of the poor. And they just say, listen to us, we can help you. So sometimes the expertise is out there. I was so impressed with the talk. I came back and told a lot of our colleagues, let's rope such institutions in. They will do the work. We just need to provide the leadership. So your question is very pertinent. Whenever you handle a challenge, it is very important to ask. The first question, has anybody done it before? maybe within our own state or other states. 99% you'll find somebody must have done it.
Yes.
Maybe it is not at the level at which you expect, or maybe it surpasses all your expectations. First, have the humility to copy and learn and reach out and, reach out.
I think the first thing that we discussed about this sanitary napkin plant also.
Just reach out and have, we sometimes have this tendency to stop all the projects of our predecessors and to start afresh. And that's wasting a lot of time. All it takes is a generosity to acknowledge somebody's contribution and then take it up forward from that. Second, reach out to professional agencies. In today's world, you want to do an AI project. I will be speaking about technology. Call out the correct partner. There are academicians, like you're a consulting firm, you're working with, projecting the capability building. You might not have the expertise. So the leadership, I always believe a Raja should make, the Raja successful because he knows who has to work where. Right? There's a very interesting example, just connected to that. In a particular organization, I had an officer extremely meticulous with rules and this thing. And he was getting into fights with everybody. But I knew his strength. So just shifted him and put it to audit, and the innovation job I gave to somebody else, all problems solved. I had no issues. He would always catch the mistakes and bring it to me, but I utilized him in the right job.
So right person for the right job.
The right job. That is extremely important, So in that way, when you understand there's a big gap, I don't have somebody who brings in that expertise, you reach out. There are the bankers, there are the academicians, there are the consultants. Bring them because the ultimate goal is to lessen the burden on the public, to give better service. So you have to reach out. You have to find a way to bring a team together, external, internal, and then there will be a lot of, defenses and fears, especially within the government team sometimes when external agencies come. So it's extremely important to create that camaraderie, a mutual trust. That there also the leader plays a very vital role. Because if there is lack of trust, you don't deliver, right? So tremendous opportunity to truly bring in human resources together. Yes.
So bringing human resources together, I think one of the other interventions or crisis management exercise that you have been part of, I think a couple of times, has been flood management.
Yes.
I think that kind of symbolizes, where so many agencies, so many personnel have to come together to ensure that we are able to save lives, save resources. And save infrastructure as well.
Right.
So could you elaborate a little bit more upon your experience of handling floods? I think in 2 districts you have tackled
in Shahjahanpur, I think floods came after 25 years when I was the DM there. And then I had experience of handling floods in Barabanki also. Typically, every year, every district magistrate has a flood arrangement. There is a formal meeting. It's institutionalized as part of it because UP has had a history of floods. So it's an institutionalized part. You review the flood plan. You check the readiness and the availability of every organization. For example, right from, at that particular time, we didn't have so many mobile access or whatever. So even local landline number that particular time of the Pradhan, today though mobiles are available everywhere.
WhatsApp,
it's a total different way of monitoring through drones. You can sit and watch. I'm speaking about 10, 12 years before. That particular time, we used to have even the numbers of the people who owned boats, the government boats as well as the, the divers in case of an emergency. Then we would have, the Panchayati Raj responsibility. Then there'll be question of, acha machhar hoga, to uska kaun handle karenge? Who will build alternative toilets? What about women and children, pregnant women? Kitna hai? How many due date of delivery is there? To such minor details, one would analyze, one would understand which are the villages which are most vulnerable. This is apart from the typical irrigation ka, all the plans of protecting overnight. That all that apart, the human details.
So this is all part of a preparation
plan. And then you hope that the river, will be a little kind on you. Now, Gagra, literally like the skirt a woman wears, swirls and moves in its own way. So she will cut wherever she wants, change the course, and she can create terror like a furious woman every time. So Gagra, it used to take 5 hours even to reach from the headquarters to the village which is affected. But then as DM, every week I would visit because sometimes it's very important for the people to know that they are not the only ones suffering and we are right there with them, So when you're there and you sit and listen to them, a lot of them don't want to leave the homes because their villages, their farmlands are inundated but they know every year she will come, but still they will cultivate there. It's a connection with you offer them land to shift also, they will not go. It's something got to do with that homeland wala concept.
Correct.
Meri bhumi na hum chhod ke nahi jayenge.
Son of soil kind
Now,
of a
what
thing.
will happen to the cattle? You have to arrange for the fodder for the cattle.
Right.
How will the tractors come? The roads are all slushy. Even my driver, everybody would say, "Abhi DM madam ke saath tumhara jo gaadi hai, niche na chale jaya." Bechare driver is so bhai beat ki madam hai har din aa rahi hai ki what will happen to the ambassadors? You can't even travel in an ambassador. Sometimes you just sit in a boat.
Correct.
You have to travel. Bullock cart, it doesn't matter, but you have to reach there.
Yes.
One thing, I think again, linking into that sanitary napkin wala thing, for the first time being a DM, I asked, what about the women and children? I mean, it's a scary thing. We should provide them sanitary napkin. And the production unit, which I told you, and that particular time, I think it was that particular time it struck. Here, during floods also, we ensured that the sanitary napkin pads were distributed among the women and children. So it came in handy, so that interlinking aspect. Yeah. So sensitivity about what people want, going and talking to them, right from drinking water. And then what about education? These children are cut off from education. So starting Ekal Vidyalaya sort of a thing, channelizing the energy.
Right.
And then sensitizing the police, because I say when people are marooned, there can be a lot of conflicts also.
Correct.
So thinking out of the box sometimes and having their trust and the faith, that brings in a lot of, joy also. But now with technology, I think things have improved, because you've got minute-to-minute tip how much Nepal is releasing water, and you can shift them in time. Technology has made a lot of difference. But even then, we had very, very firm and systematic governance plans in place. Yeah.
So I think you elaborated about the plan that goes before a flood, if it strikes.
Yes.
But when the flood strikes, what are the various agencies that a district administration as a whole coordinates with? And also, what are the SOPs or the steps that they are taken, in a phase-wise manner, that this is to be done first, this is to be done second, so that we're able to seamlessly mitigate things.
So the land revenue system is very, very, that, right? From the Lekpal, the Naib Tahsildar, it is always a revenue, the district magistrate, the ADMFR.
Correct.
So there is a in charge, and there are standard SOPs. So, providing ration. So it's all in place. Panchayati Raj knows what they are supposed to do. The ration system, and a lot of NGOs come offering food and all. Hospital system, the medical is very, very alert. There are ambulances, doctors, education system. So the SOPs are in place. You just have to monitor very regularly. We'll be having daily meetings, talking to the pradhans, whether the food, the fodder, the life, the sanitation, where they are shifted, the schools, all of it is in place. So certain fundamentals are all very well taken care of. But typically, it is a revenue administration which plays a very vital role. Right. After that, the CDO and his team of multiple department, agriculture department plays a role, because then they have to survey the crop loss, and then it all happens parallelly. Distribution of compensation if there is loss of cattle or unfortunately loss of human life. So every single thing is accounted for in the plan, so it becomes tick marks. Sometimes even there are situations in which the army had to be coordinated and an army steps in.
When does an army step in? What is the...
That is when for example, unexpected, let's say landslide, like you must have read in Uttarakhand or somewhere, or or I remember NDRF calling in the army and NDRF when we lost this is apart from the floods, when a vehicle toppled into a river and crocodiles were in place and normal people could not rescue it. And NDRF team and SDRF team came, and there are certain situations when you cannot handle, when you reach out to your army colleagues and they step in. Yes. So having good relation and using the agency for protection of human life, all this comes under the mandate of the district magistrate.
So you mentioned about NDRF and SDRF. So it's a three-tiered structure. It's NDRF, SDRF, and DDRF.
Yes.
And the district magistrate is
heading the district.
So how does that hierarchy or the tiering system work for any kind of emergency situation?
Like, for example, you must be reading railway accidents and the Rato Raj district magistrate. So originally, again, the system has become stronger in the recent years. The National Disaster Relief Fund, everybody knows that. There are again standard of operating practices. There is an SDRF headed by the relief commissioner at the state level, and the district magistrate heads the district disaster relief agency. Anytime any disaster strikes, a first phone call will reach the district magistrate as well as the superintendent of police. So that is there. The buck stops there. It is that agency which immediately takes. So same plans which I told you are in place in every district. Right? So God forbid a natural disaster or a man-made disaster happens. the officers, the teams all report to one person, right?
It's a unified command
yes,
kind of a thing.
it's a unified command system, and whatever the terminologies we use, the war room, the coordination, things are in place. Usually, like I say, the revenue system, the trusted and tested revenue system, which runs elections, which handles the floods, that is equipped to handle any emergency, right? And the greatest power there is because the entire district machinery reports to the collector. There, that one command, that single command and coordination comes into force.
Right. So I think we discussed a lot about your stint as district magistrate in different districts. And you mentioned that the place where you spent most of the time is where you were able to create a lot of interventions.
Yes.
A similar stint was with the Home Department.
Yes.
And there were a lot of interventions, as part of the Home Department here in Lucknow.
Yes.
I think one primary among them being able to combat human trafficking after the 2015 Nepal earthquake.
Yes.
So could you elaborate upon how did you get to know कि ये कुछ हो रहा है?
Right.
Earthquake हुआ है. I think everyone was busy with just ensuring that loss of life को हम बचा सकें और relief provide कर सकें, supporting Nepal as well. But human trafficking element is something. How did you get to know ये हो रहा है, and then what did you do after that?
So I had joined the Home Department somewhere after my stint as DM Barabanki.
Right.
And Home Department, that women and children, that particular section was assigned to me. And one day, the colleague from UNICEF had come searching for me and saying, ma'am, Nepal mein earthquake hua hai, and I would like to put it into your kind notice that maximum human trafficking of women and children happen when disasters take place.
Right.
People promise because parents are lost, children are innocent, relatives don't know what to do, and human traffickers are active, and it's a very brutal world. We are going to hold, and there'll be a workshop in the JTRI recently. Kindly attend it, and we need help and leadership here. So I ended up attending a workshop in the Judicial Training Institute. And a victim of the Gujarat earthquake, who was a 10-year-old and was sold in a GB Road brothel, narrated her episode, and half of the audience, including me, we were in tears. She spoke about how she was sold into prostitution, and after so many years, she got infected with HIV, and she saw the same Dalal, the same person, traveling with another young girl, going to sell her. She went and caught hold of his shoulder, his collar, and she dragged him to the police station, because by the time she was working with an NGO. And seeing her weep, and seeing how she was determined to prevent another child from suffering. And then she appealed to us that you're sitting in positions of power. Please don't turn your ears away and your eyes away, because these are brutal realities. So that made a lot of impact on me. When I came back, we had a consultation. We invited a lot of departments, women and child, Home Department, we took the lead, NGO, UNICEF came. There were a lot of NGOs working in place, Shakti Vahini, so many. We started a training campaign involving so many stakeholders. In fact, we ended up training more than 3,000 stakeholders across the state, including, villagers, including Gram Panchayats, including railway, because that is a major way of trafficking. We sensitized people about how this is a rampant issue.
Training was on what aspect?
Training us what is human trafficking.
Okay.
And how a gang operates to traffic young women, children, and selling them off into begging, prostitution so much. It is a dark world.
Right.
And how this is a reality. And how when strange people come and offer money or salary, how it is our responsibility to report it to the police.
Right.
How when victims have survived comes back, we have to treat them respectfully. What are the criminal laws in place to prevent these things from happening? How people work in gangs, for example, gaadi lekar ke koi aayega, there will be a stay house. But ultimately, it's a crime. And it is the third most popular crime, making money after the selling of arms and drugs in the world. So this reality itself, to sensitize, when you speak with railway police, for example, and say कि आप जब check करेंगे और बच्चे बैठा हुआ है, छोटे छोटे बच्चे, आपको पूछना चाहिए अब कहाँ जा रहा है? Are they having the documents? What is it? And and we got NGOs to come and share experiences. Right. So they were, and then it's like, we can't believe these things are happening right under our noses. And the sensitivity that we'll pick up a call if somebody gives us a sujana. Then we ended up creating SOPs for it. So that was very important. So this became a major topic. And we also changed the victim compensation fund to ensure that children of molestation or sexual harassment or human trafficking got money from the compensation fund as directed by the Honorable Supreme Court. So we made a lot of systematic changes. and our efforts were recognized by various forums.
Right.
And the most satisfying thing was, I'd like to give an example, 2 incidents which strikes me. One day evening, again about the trust. I was working, Kamal Saxena sir was my boss in the Home Department.
Yeah.
Sir is retired now. So we got a phone call on a Friday, 5 o'clock. The trust when you build in, like I said, the power which you have. Ki, ma'am, 2 children have been sold by the uncle, 3-year-old and 5-year-old, for 15,000 rupees to a brothel. Now this is a reality. You have to listen to me. 3 years and 5 years sold by the uncle for brothel. FIR has not been filed. If we can work now, we'll get the kids back. Otherwise, it's gone. I remember I got this email because at that time, and then I ran to my boss's room. And then we sat there and called up n number of police officers. But in 24 hours, we got the children back. I remember coming back and literally, I was shaking all over because I was looking at my daughters. This is the vulnerability with which our children live. 3-year-old and 5-year-old. And the photograph had them with lipstick and rouge. I said, 3-year-old and 5-year-old. Is this the world in which I'm living? Yes, this is the world in which we are living. I cannot turn my face away from reality. And I could not sit and, blame the society. The work in front of me was crystal clear. Get the kids back. That's it. So we called. We got the CCTV footage. The commissioners worked quickly in time, the police commissioners. We got the kids back. We ensured that they were taken away from the parents. We put them in institutionalized care because the family was obviously part of the selling ring. So an FIR is booked. The children were taken under the protection of the state. And that's something which I can never forget. This is a reality. And then we got a phone call from an NGO. Again, because when you attend workshops with NGOs, you exchange numbers. Then they have a trust. Then din or raat we can call up and help will come. All you need to do is listen sometimes. So the call came that a 10-year-old the mother has been tricked, poor woman, apparently promised job as a servant in Delhi. And she is in a cardboard box in a train. Because the train mein jo kaam karne wala, they are part of this gang. Oh. And if you can't get her out, she's gone. The train was stopped midway. We called him the SP, the train was stopped, and the child was actually pulled out of a cardboard box, half suffocated. These are mafias we are dealing with. Huge thousands of crore of income in selling and of young children and women. They promised jobs, but then they exploited. I met a very dynamic SHO who, in a workshop where all the senior most officers from and representatives from the world there, she spoke how she dragged the human trafficker. And no phone calls makes a difference. She said, I'm the SHO and I'm going to use the power and I will treat him as he deserves. Arrested him, and in spite of whatever pressure, ensured that he went to jail. And the whole was applauding. We just need to understand our power and use it sometimes. That's it. And in positions where we just got to listen sometimes. Yeah.
So approximately how many people or children, women would have been saved through this effort?
I wouldn't have the exact number. But the point is, I would like to say that particular year, the United States Department of Home, they come out with a global advisory on the good efforts which have been done for protection of women and children. They mention UP government and the efforts we did to stop human trafficking. And the US Council awarded us and recognized the efforts, and we were encouraged to continue the good work. But definitely, we made that topic a priority. The most vulnerable women, children became, and we set up a lot of anti-human trafficking units at that particular time, sensitized the officers. Usually we look at such posts as punishment postings, but we need the most sensitive officers there. The tendency is if a 17-year-old or 16-year-old goes missing, even today, I think, it's across the world. You say, acha, wo to elope kiya hoga. It's a love affair. I have much better things to do. I'm investigating a murder case. But the question is, this child would have been a victim of human trafficking. Correct. And what you're seeing today in the cyber world also. And this crime can affect it irrespective of the stature of your father or your mother. Once you're a victim of a human trafficking ring, you are a victim. So to be there for these children, to strengthen the mechanisms and the first golden hour, like they say in medical, the first 24 to 48 hours are so critical in getting the child back. So prioritizing these less talked about topics, that is very important. So sometimes as officers, we get to choose what are our priorities, what we review. So there we can use this discretionary power.
how do you remain so courageous in these situations? Because it can be so overwhelming, it can be so daunting, and at times, because these are very scary people as well. Like,
yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a very interesting question. That connects me to why I translate and why I do social service. There is this Japanese concept of ikigai, right? Iki is life and gai is happiness. So what makes you a happy, contented person? So for every human being is different. For you, it will be something else. For me, it will be something else. So for me, service is very important.
Right.
Right. And there is a joke that civil servants nowadays are neither civil nor a servant, So I try to keep the service part alive in my life. So when you help somebody with no voice, like they say, be the voice of the voiceless.
Yeah.
A lot of us come into the Indian Administrative Service and in the Indian Police Service wanting to be the voice of the voiceless, wanting to be there for the poorest man, wanting to ensure that the child working in a brick kiln is protected and brought under the, protection of the Constitution, that no child works in a brick kiln. We want to protect a child from bonded labor, but the reality is exploitation is there, correct? So when we actually use our power to help one person, the power which actually, which comes in your heart, the courage which is brought, it's some sort of a, I'm a very spiritual person that way. I believe in spirituality. I get a lot of confidence and strength when I do such work. So I try to find time to do social service, try to go and meet the most marginalized of the communities in my free time. And then I feel I am actually in a position to help them. And the smallest bit of work you do gives you a lot of courage. That's the best way to put it.
I think quite powerful, and I think motivates me even to follow the same steps of following the ikigai method of living. So moving on to some of the other more recent postings that you have had.
Yes.
And as you also mentioned that when you served as a district magistrate, the technological interventions were, I think just starting off.
Right.
But it has, picked up quite a bit after the Digital India mission, that the country has adopted.
Yes.
So can you talk about some of the digital interventions and digitalization interventions that have been, done in both your stint as, in the income tax department as well as the stamps and registration department?
Yes. I was IG stamp registration for almost 3 years and GST commissioner for 3 years. So in the stamp registration, we went to e-stamping in a big way at that particular time. The shift from physical stamps to encouraging use of maximum e-stamps, and swift messaging system in which we became part of the banking community, So the commissioner plays a...
What are e-stamps exactly?
E-stamp is whenever you purchase or, any land deed or whatever, you get your deed registered, but the government mandates that you pay stamp duty, right? So physical stamps used to be printed and purchased 5,000 rupee, whatever. Yes, stamp paper. So that has been digitized across a long time. And today, the whole world uses e-stamps because it is technology foolproof. Nobody can, and it is online quickly. So we went into encouraging e-stamping. So that reduces a lot of cost of printing and manufacturing, all the, tomfoolery associated with physical transportation, the security, all of that is gone. And the power to sit at your home and to access and to pay. Right. So that it is a great equalizer and no fear of carrying cash and, purchasing. It's all online transaction.
And what is SWIFT?
Swift messaging is it's an international banking system. Recently, when Russia-Ukraine war came in, they stopped Russia from accessing it. So banks are a very vital part of our link. So we got a proposal for, changing our regulations and rules so that we are part of the swift messaging and enabling people who wanted to lend and, borrow from the bank to be part of that. So the stamp department had to do some changes. So we created an environment in which the best practices of India, we started copying, emulating, and going on board. In that particular time, all these land records and registry deeds of years, like the revenue department had been, digitizing all the land records. Similarly, we started all the registered deeds, which are in the different sub-registrar offices. So we started digitizing it. Now there is a project on it. Started in my time. We did 3 or 4 districts, entire digitization. So then, as a customer, before buying a land, you can check the veracity of what you're buying, 10 years, history, everything, which is not available before.
Right.
Who did the land belong to before? So any digital intervention in today's world is a great help to the ultimate customer, because wo apna lifetime savings is investing in purchasing a land or a property.
Yeah.
So the more information you get, the more transparently you get. So that is how we should, visualize it. So naturally, when you start, your team is not confident. You don't have all the resources. There it comes, like you told me about bringing in agencies, right? So you had the stockholding corporation coming in and saying, we can help you in this particular thing. We can help you with training. We can help you with the material. E-stamp, we are there. So you listen to a lot of agencies, and my own team said, ma'am, we just need a couple of, printers and whatever it is. We can do this digitization as a pilot project, because we had to start it up. But we went in it in a big way. We ended up winning some couple of e-governance awards across. UP's efforts were recognized. So, and the same thing continued when I went to GST department. See, GST today, it has become so complicated. So if you do return scrutiny, like after 4 or 5 years, you got to do the returns of a GST payer, and you have to plug the loopholes. Did you pay in time? You have to check the input tax credit. There are different forms. It is humanly impossible for anybody to check 16, 17 different parameters, a balance sheet, and to check where the person is at fault and to plug it. Correct? It has to be technology. And when you got AI and machine learning, which can check the expected rules, regulations, and what is the pattern, you should just copy it. And when you speak about a state like Uttar Pradesh, you're speaking about lakhs of such notices, and then there's always a deadline. You have to issue the notices within such and such a time, otherwise it gets time barred. That means even if there is a potential loss of thousands of crore of tax revenue, you will not be able to issue a notice if you don't, follow the timeline. Because you have to issue the first notice, then you have to listen to them, then you have to issue the second notice. So it's a set pattern.
Due process.
Otherwise, if you lose, it can be a 3,000 crore loss, but if you not issued the notice in time in the proper format, you lose the opportunity. The law will step in then to protect the other person. But if you issue it, the law will step in to protect your right to tax. So the law is very neutral and very powerful. So my team said, in Telangana and Andhra, they'd already done AI-based notices. They're tied up with IIIT Hyderabad in Telangana, for example. So a few of my officers along with me, we went there. It was then that I was so impressed with my team. You have these young officers. Some of them are from engineering background, some are lawyers, but they know their job. So we went and did a thorough study. Originally, we were supposed to get the software, but for some reason, it did not happen. But when I came back and I said, now, we're not going to get the software, they said, we have understood the algorithm, ma'am. We just need a software development team, right? So Dr. Nitin Gokan sir was our ACSR. ACSR said, go ahead and tie up with IIIT, IIT, wherever you want. So for an 18 lakh MOU, just it cost us 18 lakh MOU, we tied up with the team in IIIT Lucknow. Young engineers, and they were so thrilled that we are going to be part of a government project, and they're bright and smart. You will not believe it, Venkatesh, in a matter of 3-4 months, we had a state-of-the-art software. In fact, my team studied it so well, they ensured that the mistakes which they learned from other systems, they removed it. They ensured every law and every rule was compiled. But by the time I left the organization after 3.5 years, 1,500 crore we could collect by using that software, which cost us 18 lakhs. Wow. And UP became the largest after Andhra to implement it in such a huge scale. And All India, the GST Council also appreciated it. Now they're coming out with All India, the same model, AI-based scrutiny notices. So that has been tremendous. All we did was to listen, what is the technology available, understand the problem that the officers are facing, the humongous amount of data you've got to do. And the officers are like so delighted because the software just catches the gap and pops it up. All you got to do is check the balance sheet, add your comment and send it, right? And then you have the freedom of deciding, okay, small amounts we will not do, we'll focus on the big amounts. So again, you can apply your managed principles of 80-20 rule or focus on the big players first. Although the whole thing is available, which should have been impossible. Even 10% notices we would not have been able to issue had it been a manual effort. Because officers are caught up in elections, so many duties, and you're supposed to do this extremely taxing job which involves data, and that is where, so there are so many opportunities for AI to be utilized in our work, and it doesn't cost too much. You just need the correct partner. But 18 lakh investment and 1,500 crore And we won
Return
the
of Medal, yeah.
Scotch and Platinum Award for
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yes, recognizing our effort. Yes.
So very, I think very impactful with that much amount of money,
And that too with triple IT.
Yes,
I mean, we didn't go to any high mode, anything.
Yeah,
we gave
yeah.
opportunity,
Yeah.
appreciation letter.
Correct.
I hope they also get excellent job because they did a live
Yeah.
project.
And I think it also motivates the young coders to work
Yes.
in the GovTech domain.
Absolutely.
They would
Absolutely.
now
It is
get-
a win-win
Yeah,
situation.
yes. But were there any reservations that some of the stakeholders involved showed in terms of digitizing all of these things, be it the e-stamps, be it the GST returns?
That's a very perceptive and very good question. Whenever you enter an organization, there'll be all sorts of people there.
Yeah.
There'll be people who have the domain expertise, who wouldn't want to share it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that willingness that I will lose my power if I let go of this,
Yeah.
now everybody comes to me
Ah.
manually. Now the digitization comes, my power, that is
That
a
is true.
serious issue, a human resource issue, which you have to address.
Hmm.
So as a leader, you understand where are the pockets of resistance, correct? And then you understand who are your supporters, but then you're very clear you've got to get it done.
Yeah.
But I think a smart leader avoids conflicts,
Hmm.
will take these people who resist, give them leadership position, give them your attention, make them the champions, and slowly then they become, like there is this beautiful leadership quotation in a philosophical book which I read, that the best team and the best leader is when the success comes, the team says, we did it ourselves, right? So I always try where the pockets of resistance are there, I try to make them the champions of change. I say, आप ही लोग को करके मुझको दिखाना है. Then suddenly they feel, चलो मैम बता रहे हमको करना है, चलो हम बता देंगे कैसे करना है, तुम लोगों को क्या मालूम है, algorithm हम बताएंगे. And one day his resistance he has become the champion. Then people come and say, आपने कैसे किया? मैंने 2 कप चाय पिलाए but काम तो हो गया ना, right? So that is where probably my accelerate training in human resource management comes into power.
Definitely.
See, you have to encourage. I always believe in McGregor's theory X, theory Y. What is theory X? That the whole world is full of sloths. I am the only honest person. I have to punish in order to get work done. Unfortunately, a lot of us continue to work in that mode. Theory Y is people are full of potential. We can get the best thing done, and I'm sitting here to solve problems. I always believe in theory Y. So the same team which did nothing, sometimes give miraculous efforts under a leader who believes in them and trusts them. I have had people coming and saying, "Ma'am, आप इतना trust देता है कि Saturday, Sunday भी घर में नहीं बैठ पाता है." Then we come and work क्योंकि आपको दिखाना है. So the power of appreciation, and I'm very liberal with appreciation letters, and I go slow on punishments. So it has helped me a lot.
So obviously this is one set of people जिनको power जाती हुई दिख रही होती है. That's why they must be resisting. There could be another which could have vested interest because obviously there are people who might be making money out of it under the table.
Very true.
So how did you encounter such resistance and उसपे
so
तो डंडा ही करना पड़ता होगा?
Always you will get complaints कि ये आपने ये digitization किया, हमको ये notice मिल रहा है. That's part of it. That's part of it. So it is a question of again. As a leader, you decide where your energy should be. Sometimes you have got to learn to ignore, but you have to keep your higher ups informed. For example, the importance and the relevance of what you're doing. You need to have the essential confidence of your higher authorities whenever you launch a new project. You facilitate, but you cannot succeed unless you have the full trust. So sometimes you'll go ahead and say, "Sir, abhi ye 3-4 complaint aane wala hai," but then they'll say, "That is okay. Don't worry, you do your job." So that is very, very important.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Now, having talked about the district magistrate stint, the home department, GST, as well as the stamps and registration department, throughout the journey, I'm sure everything was never hunky dory. सब कुछ हमेशा ये नहीं होता कि हर चीज जो आप कर रहे हैं वो अच्छा ही हो रहा है. There might be the ups and downs. So could we talk about how do you any situations where downs have been encountered and उसको आपने कैसे navigate?
Yes. I think it is very important sometimes where people have this, a lot of social media creates this impression among people that everybody is having such a great life and everything's so picture perfect. They're beautiful all the time. They're having such a great life. IAS means sab kuch. It is not like that. It is extremely important for people to tell the world that we're all in the same earth, suffering, winning, getting up in the morning, sometimes wishing not to go to office, sometimes wondering what is the purpose of my life, sometimes feeling depressed, existential angst. It happens to everybody. Irrelevant whether you're Bill Gates or whether you're an ordinary person, or you're an IAS officer. So it's very, very important to know that things don't come very fast. There is no alternative to hard work. You have to have your confidence and your positivity every single day. All of this is very important. A lot of setbacks have happened. Sometimes IAS officers face a lot of inquiries, and you're out of the blue and you're not even aware what is it. So it comes with the job. So you have to have a philosophical detachment when things don't go your way.
Yeah.
All things don't go your way in whichever straight off life it is. So one has to be detached. In like the 21st year of my service, I've realized that the ability to find joy in my work, I had the power to design at least some part of my life which gives me joy within my work. I should focus on that. I love training and development because I specialized in training and development. I was Associate Manager Corporate Training in Infosys before I joined the IAS.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so I really like that human resource part of it.
Yeah.
So in GST also, we did a lot of training and capacity building. So nobody stops you from doing the things which you want in your job. So if you want to do a training program, if you want to attend a workshop, if you want to share, who's stopping you?
Yeah.
So I try to design into my work little islands which give me joy along with the routine work. And I'm prepared that things do not go my way all the time. It is only when you have unfair expectations that you get disappointed. And sometimes these disappointments come with certain challenges. Then you start thinking, how do I solve it? How do I find a way around it? And always you have to be extremely practical as an administrator. If you come out with esoteric solutions, it will never work. You have to understand this is a human nature. And even when I move away, what I build should stay. Yeah. So system building is very important. Yes. It cannot be officer dependent, right? True. So when negativities and challenges and failures come, take it with, a philosophical detachment, but always try to build systems which will stay even after you move away. Otherwise, it's just a temporary intervention. It will not help anybody. So like the AI system is a permanent thing. Yes. It is there. It will only get improved. Nobody is going to go back to the manual now. Yeah. So that's a contribution to which one has played once a little bit. So that's how we view it. Yeah. But no, it is not hunky-dory at all. It can be terrible sometimes.
And I think, as you mentioned, that there's a philosophical detachment, that you have to have. I think along with that comes emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. Yeah. There is a beautiful quotation about emotional quotient, the ability to be angry to the correct degree, at the correct person at the correct time. Yeah. So in government, datna bhi aana chahiye aapko. If you are smiling all the time, people will take you for a ride. Yeah. So emotional quotient is absolutely needed.
Yes. Very interesting. Yes. So having discussed about your journey of serving Uttar Pradesh for the last 20 plus years, I think our viewers would love to know you personally as well. And I think you, apart from just serving the people in the capacity of an administrator, are also a big time enthusiast of literature and have translated books from 4 different languages: Hindi, English, Awadhi, Malayalam. So how did it all start? कब आपको लगा कि आपको literature में interest है? And when was the first time that you were like, this is something that I like to pursue?
I'd grown up, although I trained formally in engineering and management. Right. Grew up in a home where my parents are like absolutely voracious readers. So we grew up reading literature, magazines, all the magazines, English, newspaper, members of libraries, and reading world classics in translation. So I still remember in 10th standard, before the exam, I was into the Malayalam translation of Asha Purna Devi's Bengali trilogy. She has written this Pradham Pradishradi, Bagul Katha, Subarnalata. And my mother was, you have a history exam, and what are you sitting here and reading this Bengali novel in Malayalam for? She was literally, But then the love of literature, so is in the blood, so to say. Yeah. And Kerala is a very vibrant library movement, which started somewhere immediately after independence. Right. Every remote village which will have a government-sponsored Vayanashala or a library, were world classics available in translation. So we all grew up benefiting from that particular culture. So, books, when you say a bestseller in Kerala, books go into second edition in 1 week's time, 8,000 to 10,000 copies sold. Whereas in English literature, if it sells 3,000 books, you say it's a bestseller. So that's a difference. So growing up and coming from that sort of an environment played a role. So when I got opportunity, in fact, I just met, there are different stories about how I got into translating, this book. I'd like to show you, Sundarkand and Lankakand.
Yeah. These are some of the...
books which I translate from Sri Ramcharitamanas. 4 Sopans are out, Kishkinda Kand, Aranyakand, along with these 2 books. So this is an interesting story.
Yeah.
2016 I started. Today I've done 4 sopans. I'm working on Balkan right now. Like, Tulsidas ji, Sri Ramchandra Manas is a
Ji.
life breath of UP. And I grew up studying and reading the Malayalam version,
Right.
Adhyatma Ramayana, written by Tunja Thirithachan. We
Ji.
have almost 300 Ramayanas across the world,
definitely,
right?
yes.
Every language, Orissa will have its own Ramayana.
Its own adaptation, its own
Kamba Ramayana.
interpretations.
And these are all poetic masteries
Yes,
also,
yes.
how to live life. So somewhere in 2016, my daughter had gone abroad for her undergrad studies.
Okay.
So it's very funny. So I called my mother and said, I'm very perturbed. She's not yet 18. She's going abroad. So what do? She said, when you went out of the home for the first time, I prayed to Krishna. So I suggest you do the same. That's what he said. Pray to your favorite God. One sentence, but what wisdom. So I'm a big time devotee of Hanumanji.
Areva.
So I started Sundarkand.
Right.
Every day in my WordPress blog, I thought, okay, protect my daughter. She's gone abroad, be with her. And every day, some 6 to 7 shlokas.
Okay.
And I look at this marvel. Again, it's something if you are spiritual understand. Suddenly, I am appointed as nodal officer to Chitrakoot.
Okay.
I am in the home department, but I'm sent as nodal officer for nutrition in Chitrakoot.
Wow.
I said, Hanumanji, you are basically telling me that I know a Malayali is struggling with Awadhi. And you're telling me, keep confidence, I'm watching over you. And I went to Rajapur, where Tulsidas ji wrote the Sri Ramchandra Manas. I saw there are remnants of the ancient script there. Yeah. And I went to the temple, sat with the pujari and came back knowing that something divine is at play here. And on the 50th day, I finished this book. So there are 50 chapters if you look at it.
Yeah.
So there is a story of this unexpected visit to Chitrakoot, which has inspired the completion of this book. 50 chapters, beautiful pictures. So
I think 2 things that stand out for me are they are very beautiful pictures which have
yes, the artist has done a marvelous job.
Yeah, and I think it's also in 3 languages here. I see Awadhi, and I see the English
transliteration
as
along
well
with
as
the interpretation.
as well.
So anybody who does not know Awadhi, any language, if you know English, you can follow the book.
Right.
And you can listen and then follow with this book. And children will probably find it fascinating.
Very interesting.
And I've done it in chapters, so that is very easy to follow. Then it became some sort of a passion, Then I was not confident enough. I mean, I'm a Malayali. I still struggle with my ka, keki. I have no clue about the gender. My daughters tell me not to open my mouth in Hindi and stop embarrassing them. But somehow, my mother tongue is very closely connected to Sanskrit. And when I read Awadhi, I understood it is accessible to me. So I ended up doing, like the inspiration struck. So from Sundarkand, then I did Kishkindagan, then I went back and did Aranyakand, then I jumped and did Lanka Kand during COVID. Now I'm working on Balkand in 2 parts. Part 1 is in the publisher, part 2. God willing, I will complete all the 7 sopans.
How many books have you?
There are 7 sopans.
7 so far.
I've done 4.
Yeah.
And I'm working on Balkand right now.
Right.
Yes.
Right. But there are other set of books also that you have translated.
Yes, I translated from Malayalam to English and
yeah.
from different languages to Malayalam.
To Malayalam as well.
So again, it was very interesting. The books to Malayalam was again Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa's discourses in rural Bangla.
Right.
Was translated. There was an interpretation of those by C. Rajagopalachari, the first Governor General of India. His daughter, who was married to Gandhiji's son, translated her father's Tamil version into Hindi. So Bangla discourses of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa interpreted by a Tamil scholar and a great, he was a brilliant scholar also, C. Rajagopalachari. He had written it in Tamil. His daughter translated it in Hindi, and the Hindi book ended up in my hand. I translated it to Malayalam.
Wow.
So DC Books published it. So that was my sojourn into from Hindi to Malayalam.
Very interesting.
And then I ended up meeting this brilliant writer called K.R. Meera at a mutual friend's place.
Right.
So I read a lot. So I asked her, there's a story about this IIT topper, a girl who ends up as a widow in Vrindavan. So it's a very heart-rending novella about a man-woman relationship. So I said, how come nobody translated it? She says, people says it's too disturbing.
Okay.
And it's because, so I said, can I try? I don't know what made me say that. I've never translated, professionally before. She says, go ahead. And Penguin ended up giving me a 2-book deal.
Oh, wow.
And that is how the journey started.
Right.
Today, I think 11 or 12 books I've translated. And I've worked with 9 brilliant writers of Malayalam.
Yeah.
I'd like to show you the book of Exodus, Vijay James. This came out in August. It is a book written 25 years before. The book celebrated its silver jubilee in Malayalam. And on the year of silver jubilee, Penguin Random House has brought it out in English. It's supposed to be it's considered as a classic in Malayalam literature. It's about the lives of inhabitants in a rural isle in Cochin.
Right.
So James won the DC Books Award from Arundhati Roy 25 years before.
Right.
And this book has been released today. And this is another book by Sheila Tommy based on the Arab-Israel conflict, which again was released in July this year. Yes. And if you want to see how the originals
we'd love to see the original books.
This is the original.
This is the
original of Do Not Ask the River Her Name.
All right.
Roughly the same size.
And
this is James's original of Prapadinda Pustam, which has come out.
Yes.
So that shows how sometimes, the language and the page numbers
could differ.
Yeah.
So, and where can, people who want to get this
all
book?
the books available in Amazon.
Yes.
It's all the translations available for online ordering.
All right. So we'll put it in the description of the video as well for people to order.
I've done different writers and hoping to see 4 or 5 authors. I mean, they are with the publishers, different stages. They'll be coming out soon. And I'm working on 2 books right now. Maybe you'd like to show. This is a doctor whose memoir as a doctor in the Indian Army. I'm translating Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Sonia Chari. And this is a financial thriller on the bulls and bears written 32 years before by an Indian Audit and Account Service Officer, K.L. Mohan. I'm working on that also.
This is very unique. Talking about the stock market of India.
Yeah, stock market.
What motivated you to get into this translation?
This book was the reason why I did an MBA. So I was an engineer. This book came and it was such a bestseller. It won the Kerala Sahitya Academy Award. Everybody was discussing it. And it has such empowered women handling businesses, companies and stocks. And the heroine's name was Minnie. So I told my dad, I also want to do an MBA. So O'Shares played a very vital role in my going to XLRI.
Wow.
So
very interesting.
It's a sort of giving back. I was delighted when the author asked me to go ahead.
Right.
Yes.
When can we expect these books to be out?
Let's hope in a couple of years.
Yes. Perfect. Awesome. And so what I see is that because I think I was conversing with you before we started the podcast, that you have a particular routine of how you do the translation. So could you please, for our viewers, tell what is the routine like on a daily basis? How much time do you devote?
Yes.
And how do you keep track of how many pages you have done and how do we go from there?
Right. I get asked this question a lot. Ministry, when do you find the time? My answer is I've been doing it all my life. It's just not like one day. There is this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a brilliant book on how to manage time. So he says, you cannot do things overnight. But 1% change done consistently. So the word is consistency, regularity, and devotion.
Right.
So even if I decide I've got, let us say it's a 250 page book. And 25 chapters, roughly, let us say. Now I cannot do it, even if I'm a genius, because literary translation means the spirit, the essence, the word. You have to capture the soul of it. You can't do it as a mechanical process. You can't put it in Google Translate and come out with the book. It'll be utter nonsense sometimes, right? But if I decide I'll do 3 pages per day, let's say 250 divided by 3, roughly 70-75 days, you can come out with the first draft.
Right.
But the 3 pages you should do, whether you had a tough day, a tiring day, a happy day, a day you did not go to work. So I think my strength is I ensure that whatever target is set for a book, whether it is 1 page or 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs, come hell or high water, I do it before I sleep.
Wow.
And then before I know, in 2 months or 3 months, I have a book ready. So that has helped me. And once you start, it becomes a part of your life discipline. Because when you love something and it gives you energy, it doesn't tire you. Right. So when an editing comes, so Penguin sends me an edit, and it takes 2 to 3 hours. I sit at 1 o'clock and I finish it at 4 o'clock. But I can still go to work with full energy because I know I've been part of something far bigger than myself.
So I think the passion towards a particular cause is what keeps the person motivated. For you, it is translation. For anyone else, it could be sports, it could be music as well.
And it's extremely important. See, if you look, when we were at school, right? We were into sports or arts. We used to come back with trophies, right? Good in elocution, sports, whatever. We were appreciated for the diverse activities in which you are participating. Then where is the role that the moment you enter into a professional job, you have to say no to all these joys of life and you are supposed to just work. What does it make us? It makes us less of a human being, isn't it? So that's a wrong concept. Society is now telling us how to live, how a professional should be, what you should or you should not do. But why should you let society tell you how you should lead your life?
Definitely.
Because there are certain things which gives you joy and only you know it. Maybe you wouldn't want to go to a party. You would much rather read the latest book, of your favorite author.
Yeah.
But then that comes at a cost. Every decision has a price to pay. Maybe you will not be so popular tomorrow in office because you missed the party. But you will definitely be smiling to yourself because you'll be remembering a particular line, which you can share with your best friend. So it's a choice. Always, I think, as you grow mature, you have to be very clear about what gives you joy.
Yeah.
Because you're not only setting an example to your own self, you're setting an example to your children as well. Because then they learn it is okay to walk your path, provided you're willing to pay the price. So things which enthuses us gives us a lot of energy. People think that by working harder, you lose energy. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
These are the things which motivate you to handle the mundane activities of the regular day. There is this quotation about Shivani, the great Hindi writer who wrote Awadhi, Mrinal Pandey's mother, Veera Pandey's mother. So when her husband died, I was reading about it. She still, after a few days, she went to the All India Radio to read out her story. From a very Kumaon, conservative Brahmin family. Everybody said, how could you do that? How can you do that? And she said, it is this which gives me the ability to handle the challenges, what I have to face during the day.
Yeah.
So that's the most beautiful explanation. And how can you and I deny somebody that, putting us into stereotypes? So what we are facing is a world in which everything is defined for us. You have to be in Facebook, or you have to post that. So sometimes we have to, again, ask a few uncomfortable questions to one's own self. What is it that gives me meaning?
Yeah.
And do I have the guts and the determination to follow that? I have had a lot of people asking me, but why don't you write? Why are you translating? I have two choices there. Either I give them a 1-hour lecture on the values of translation, the international, awards or whatever, or I just smile and say, it is my choice.
Yeah.
So now I stop giving explanations. I just say, I like what I do.
Yeah.
And I've stopped giving explanations, instead of explaining it as if it is some sort of a second order citizen in the world of writing.
True.
But then Han Kang, who won the Nobel Prize, the one who has written Vegetarian and White Work and Human Acts, she writes in South Korean language. If not for Rebecca Smith and brilliant translators, the world wouldn't be celebrating her today. So it is a service too.
Definitely. Well, I was reading more about the this world of translation. I came across a concept of intranslatable words. Could you elaborate? What does that mean? And do you think that there are words that cannot be translated at all?
That's a very interesting question. They say the Eskimos have more than hundreds of words for describing snow.
Right.
And in Malayalam, we have only one word because we don't even know what snow is. We just have a word manya. I mean, that should stand for snow and ice and everything, only one word. And Eskimos have, but then we have hundreds of ways of expressing how the rain falls in Malayalam. So, you are a North Indian, and in Kerala, the most favorite expression is, the rain is making the sound of a woman mourning, a mourning woman, a woman wailing and beating her chest, a rain falling, making the sound of a woman's mourning or keening over the death in the family. I cannot translate it word to word. Right. But then you should understand this as a mournful falling of the rain. It is not a happy drizzle.
Yeah.
So there you play with the words. So there is nothing which cannot be expressed. It is up to the translator how you choose. For example, I had just written in an article with the Indian Express. We just shared that. They asked about how deeper perspectives emerge. So in this book, do not ask the river her name. There is a mention of the patriarchs passing away. He's a professor, a Jewish professor, where Ruth, the protagonist, works. She's a caregiver, and Abba passes away. He's a very calm man who is very kind. And she links it to the passing of Jesus Christ. Okay. So there is a sentence that when Christ was on the cross and he says, I thirst, they gave him vinegar or gall or sour wine on a hyssop branch. And, it was basically, sometimes it is interpreted as an act of, they did not give him water. The Roman soldiers gave him something bitter. I mean, there is an interpretation of that also there. So we debated a long time on how to interpret that. And instead of gall and vinegar, we went in for the third version. There are different interpretations. The sour wine offered in the hyssop branch fell drop by drop on Calvary. So every word has an impact.
Right.
Everything has an impact on the reader.
Yeah.
The image which comes in your mind. So Baba too passed away, like Christ, pure soul. So that's the image which you wanted to capture. So, like when I translate Sheila Tommy into from Malayalam to English, today, a story of a Malayali woman in Arab Israel. You can understand Israel-Arab conflict through this novel from the perspective of a ordinary, middle-aged Kerala woman. If this remained within the limits of my mother tongue,
correct,
somebody sitting abroad wouldn't understand that, we are also grieving.
Correct.
When a child and a mother dies there, we're also grieving, correct? So once it comes into English, from English you can get translated into multiple languages. And it's very essential in today's divisive world for us to know that beyond gender, caste, religion, nationality, we are bound by common humanity.
Correct.
And there is nothing like literature to bring that feeling of oneness and empathy and tolerance among human beings. So for me, translation is again a part of my Ikigai service.
Very interesting, very powerful, I must say. Now, as we come to the end of the podcast, we have one last section, which is rapid fire round.
Oh.
Basically, have just a series of 5-6 questions, and whatever comes to your mind immediately.
It's very tricky. Right.
Right. So let's get started with that.
Okay.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Night owl.
Night owl. I think you mentioned also that sometimes you do your translations towards the end of the day.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Do you prefer a phone call or a text message?
Text message.
Okay. Kerala or Uttar Pradesh? that's a tricky one.
Now UP.
Now UP. Okay. What's your favorite cuisine to have?
Oh, Idli, sambar any day.
Last one, what is your favorite travel destination?
Kerala.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
My mother is there.
Yeah.
So, right.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing time for having this conversation. Is there any last message that you have for our viewers?
Yeah, I'm a mother of 2 daughters, and I listen to what the new generation struggles with every day. I open the newspapers and I see about brilliant, bright youngsters losing hope, and I read about tragedies. Something I want to say. There is this poem by Langston Hughes, Mother and Son, in which there is this sentence. I think maybe I have it. I'm not sure in front. From my memory, maybe I'll quote. The woman is uneducated, she says. So don't tell me, you won't fall. I still climbing the stairs, and my life haven't been a crystal stair, but I still climb in. Okay, so don't tell me you won't fall and get up. Literally, what she means is, that poem says, okay, my child, don't complain that life is bitter. Your mother was a slave. I've had a very tough life, but I'm still going on, and my life hasn't been a crystal stair. So don't you complain about life hitting you. Okay, so my lesson to all of these youngsters is, life is not as easy or expected to be cool or calm. Life is what it is. But one failure, one examination, one love affair gone wrong, one X, one Y, that is not your life. You're much, much bigger than all of it. Have the resilience, the confidence, have 1 or 2 intimate friends whom you can call up at any time of night or day. That's extremely important in life.
Yeah.
Right? To have somebody whom you can call up at 2 o'clock, no questions asked, will say, I'll listen to you. But before giving up so fast, okay, understand that the world between these 2 years, there's a world outside. So when this world becomes too much, step outside of yourself, go and serve somebody much more unfortunate than you. And there are people, let me tell you, who are struggling. And when you spend half an hour with them, this is a life lesson I've learned. And you come back, and then you enter back into this world, you're a far more powerful person. You're full of gratitude. So that's a lesson I'd like to leave you with.
Wonderful lesson, I must say, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers will get inspired by that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks a lot for watching this episode of Sushasan. अगर आपको ये वीडियो पसंद आई हो, तो do not forget to like, share and comment. And for more such content, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon.